What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi from Ironclad Restoration Marketing, and I'm the author of the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Now, the Restoration Rundown is your source for everything related to managing and owning your restoration business, from bringing on special guests and sharing success stories to taking deep dives with our team here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing into all of the online channels that you need to be tapping into to get visibility for your restoration business and get more leads from the internet. We've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready for the rundown. What's up? Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to this emergency episode of the Restoration Rundown. This is going to be a great one, especially for those of you out there that are interested in the movie Terminator 2 Judgment Day. If you're familiar with Skynet, there's some big things coming down the pipeline. If you haven't heard, there's a little thing called AI, artificial intelligence. It's actually literally how the Terminator 2 Judgment Day and all the Terminator series came about. But today I want to bring on an industry expert in the restoration world. I can talk about AI as it applies to marketing a lot with things so rapidly changing. I just felt it would be necessary based off of an email and a little manifesto you guys might have seen on LinkedIn a few days ago. He's been making the rounds here. If you are in the restoration industry, there's a good chance you know this gentleman. He's got some really exciting things coming up. He's got 15 years in the restoration industry, and he's the COO of Rare Restoration out in Colorado Springs, but he also has a very strong background in development and digital marketing. I want you guys to help me welcome to the Restoration Rundown, Mr. Doug Weatherman from Rare Restoration. Man, what's up, Doug?
How you doing this morning, Ben?
I'm doing all right. Well, yeah, you're 3 hours behind, so I'm like kind of afternoon. But you know what? We talked beforehand. It feels like it's been Monday every day this week, so I wish it was the morning because then I'd have more time to finish what I got to do for the day.
No kidding, man. No kidding.
Well, wanted to thank you for coming on. And, before we really dive into everything that we spoke about beforehand, I wanted to educate the listeners just on who you were. I gave you a little bit of a brief introduction, but I don't think it did you any justice to what you actually, who you really are and what you do here. So if you could just talk a little bit about your background, how you got into the restoration industry and kind of where that led you to now, and then maybe tie in the whole web development technology aspect to it so we can get a chance to get to know you a little bit before we get into it.
Yeah. Started in the restoration industry just a shade under 15 years ago with ServiceMaster. Worked for the other two big franchises too. Well, the other two back in the time were Restoration One and ServPro. Worked with all those franchises, larger franchises in all those organizations for several years. Did a lot of commercial work, disaster response team type stuff, and things of that nature over the years. In 2021, a buddy of mine who had a large carpet cleaning company here in Colorado came to me with an idea. I was already kind of looking to get out of the franchise world and kind of looking to doing something else on my own. And he came to me with an idea, and the rest is history, man. Rare Restoration Roofing's 4 years old. We service the entire state of Colorado for any emergency services, reconstruction, and roofing. And yeah, that's about the short version of the history. I've done a lot of interaction with RIA. I'm a Veris certified pricing consultant. I'm also on the independent pricing task force for the RIA. I'm a contractor consultant for Verisk. Couple of things like that, man, that I do on the side just to kind of keep the language and stuff flowing back and forth between us and the software companies. As a person who has a strong background in software, software development, digital marketing and stuff like that, I feel like I'm one of the people who can really speak to these things and use the same language that they're being fed, both ways and stuff like that to kind of keep the conversation relevant for restorers.
Yeah, and I think that's really important nowadays because I think you can and you can probably appreciate this just being a business owner. And I've got a site development company that I mentioned. You can get lost in that day to day, and a lot of things can just pass you by. And oftentimes we're very reactive to how we're going to address some of these problems that come up, or maybe some new technologies or new tactics that happen with all of the algorithm updates, just speaking from a digital marketing perspective. So I think it's super important to be ahead of this stuff. Just ask Blockbuster. I talk about this a lot, Blockbuster and MySpace and all that stuff, which I'm still holding strong on my MySpace account, by the way. I still got my top 5 friends in there. I don't even know if I have contact with them again, but I think that's super important. But the difference is, and why kind of we're talking today, and based off your manifestos, AI is moving a little bit differently, right? AI is not moving like Netflix. AI is not moving like Facebook did. AI is moving at breakneck speed. So when the reactive type of situations a little bit less effective now when it comes to things like this, I would imagine. In the past, like, hey, if SEO tactics change, you get a couple months like, holy crap, my rankings are dropping. What's going on? You can always come back and mitigate this. But man, with the way AI is moving, I would imagine that we're not going to have that luxury anymore, right? It's just changing so rapidly. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes that are going on and really just relate it to how this is going to work with the restoration industry, so we can start identifying some ways that our audience can help mitigate that and get ahead of this?
100%. There's a lot going on right now. What you said about the breakneck speed is a vast understatement. AI is teaching itself at lightning speed. This technological advancement will happen to us faster than any technological advancement in world history ever in the history of time. This one's going to be big, and it's going to come in really, really quick. The ability for these modals to teach and educate themselves, the maturity rate in which they're being trained to elevate their thinking and reaction and the product they put out, and whatever type of AI that you're using. There's many different types. The conglomeration of these types is what's happening now. Everybody knows about large language models, generative AI, stuff like the open AI stuff, the chat GPT type stuff. You can customize a GPT to do whatever you pretty much want it to do as far as generation of imagery, text, even video. You can pretty much train it to do whatever you want to do now. So that's an open technology that if you guys think that it just now came out, you're behind the curve on this conversation. People have been using GPT for a very, very long time, and large language model technology for a very, very long time. All those little how may we help you windows that have popped up on websites for a decade, that has been the evolution of large language models. Generative AI is being used across the board now, and it's changing the way that corporations do business. It's elevating the ability of one single human employee, making it to where that human employee doesn't need as much support anymore, because the support is coming from a machine now. The automation of these things is tricky. And it can be used for good or evil, I guess, is my main thing here. There's definitely a lot of enhancements that AI can bring to the human, to the human worker. I haven't written an email, actually. I don't think until that manifesto and email, I think that was the third thing I've written all year long. And I run 2 companies. AI does all my writing pretty much for me. If there's a task or something that I get, I have AI that can do whatever and send the thing out. I don't really have to do anything other than click complete task. So it makes life a lot easier for the people that understand it, but the people that don't understand it, and the people that may have a technological what's the word here? Maybe they're not as good with technology as a lot of some people are. This may have a more adverse effect on those people, because they may not even realize that they're already arguing. They're typing up page long rebuttals to a machine, and that machine's just going to eat it. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care how your business feels. You know what I mean? It's there to produce the product, and what it's been taught to produce is not what we want as an industry. It's been taught to minimize costs, contain costs, and keep things down on every single claim that you see, no matter what the size, whether it's $1,000 little basement flood or multi-million-dollar hotel loss. They're being trained on how to contain these costs. Where there's duplications in software line item definitions, these AI are picking up on that, and they're making it to where you can only choose one of those line items to go for without or wait for an adjuster to pick up this file, an actual human adjuster to pick up this file, so you can argue with them. That may be months due to the workload that they're experiencing. That may be months before they get around to, well, between the workload and constant vacations of adjusters, they do take some time to get back to folks. There's also, there's so many different models and different creation of modals out there. And the things that what I was talking about before with the conglomeration and combination of these things, this is what's the way it starts to get scary. You have CMMs, claim management models that are already out there. If you guys have noticed, you've been getting the same 12 responses to cost of doing business, or we don't pay for that. It ain't in the policy. If you guys have seen all those rebuttals, those are not coming from a human. Do you think that there's a human out there who even is taking the time to copy and paste their previous email? You're wrong. The insurance companies have been automating that for years and years and years, and they're taking in your rebuttals too, and your rebuttals become part of the response machine. The better your rebuttal, the more important that data is to that response machine, and it'll take that in and it'll work itself around until it finds a way to beat that rebuttal, and then it'll send that back to you and everyone else who uses the same rebuttal that you do. A lot of things with CMMs are scary. They're prioritizing the insurer's cost savings, AI-based thresholds for claim payouts, historical data, using what they call historical data instead of real-time data is not going to lead to what we're looking for as restorers with real-time pricing, so that when we send in an estimate today, it's reflective of what I can go get those materials for tomorrow. That just isn't the way right now, and there's not a solution for this from any of the software companies other than to make the system that they do better and to take feedback on the system that they already do use. Automated denials and reductions, these things are going to be huge. The line items that are going to get flagged now just automatically. Cost of line items that insurance companies consider excessive. No human oversight on these things. This is just going to come straight out to you. Fraud triggers are going to be increased. Things that can be considered a fraud trigger are going to be increased. Physical claim denial automation without human oversight is already taking place. You don't have a plumbing report and we can say no, well, then we're saying no. And if you get a plumbing report, call us back. You know what I mean? The AI bias and things like this that can be taught to these systems is what our problem is, right? The bias that can be trained into these systems is what's going to be the biggest adverse effect and challenge for our industry, because they're teaching it to do the thing they want it to. There is no learning for what restoration wants it to be. And this is the model that we're going to be fighting.
Yeah, we saw similar. And just to recap, you said, hey, this could be used for evil, and let's just call it what it is. I mean, this cost savings from a contractor perspective, it doesn't reflect the real-time costs on materials. I mean, how much they fluctuate in COVID year, go buy lumber, good luck, and then down it's gone up and down. But more so, look who's pumping the money into this. So there's going to be a bias. And we saw this a lot in COVID when, we talked beforehand about social media and why we don't do it. And I have a whole spiel on that, but we did have a place where we were running a lot of social Facebook ads, and they were allowing their AI during COVID, because nobody wanted to come to work, to flag fraud, everything that came through the book. So you could see, forget the bias, political bias and all that stuff that was happening. We were getting flagged on anything and everything. And then the worst part about that is, and I can see how this will translate to your industry, is that you have nobody to rebut to. You have nobody. It's just flagged. That's what it is. There's no course of action. Google's done the same thing last few years with your Google business profile, soft suspensions. If you breathed on it, try to change your business hours, you're getting suspended. And they were backed up 5 months to try to get this remedied. And you're basically financing your projects at that point, right? And not a lot of companies can overcome that. You're shelling out all your labor, all your material, all this stuff to wrap up a job, and now you're chasing a check. You're already chasing checks as it is now, but now with the prevalence of this, with no checks and balances in it, I would imagine it's going to get a little harder to get paid because you have no one to rebut to if it's completely run by AI right now.
That's the fear, right?
Right.
Without human interaction, and think of it from the other side's point of view, right? We hear all the time that the average lifespan of an adjuster is like 9 months or something like that, right? At a carrier. What sense does it make for them to keep training, licensing, and employing humans when they can train, employ, and all less humans? You know what I mean? And have machines do the stuff, and have machines do the hard part too, because adjusters are emotional people. They're an actual human being. They may have a problem denying a claim. You know what I mean? They may have an issue with that. This machine will not have that problem. This machine will be set up to do exactly what it's trained to do. And flagging your estimates and things like this is just the beginning. There's so many different technologies that these are the things that are already happening. And the fact, like, I talk to restorers all the time across the country, and so many of them are unaware that this exists, that this is actually with, well, is that why they keep saying everything's the cost of doing business, Doug? And I'm like, yeah, that's why they keep saying across carriers that it's the cost of doing business, brother, is because they're all using this same system.
No, they just have a script next to their desks, and that's line 1 rebuttal is the cost of doing business. Line 2 is sorry, we're out of the office.
And then if it gets crazy, they have an elevate, and the AI will do its own elevation to the human. It doesn't have to, you don't have to interact with it. If you trick it or start to make it double think itself, it's an automatic trigger to a human. And then the human's going to get in, read the AI report, going back and forth that says these guys gave up this and this and this and this and this and whatever else, and then or they're sticking to their guns on all these things, and the adjuster is going to come in that tone. You know what I mean? He knows history then at that point. He doesn't have
we reviewed your account, and we did determine that this is the cost of doing business. So
I am the guy. I'm the guy who did this to you the whole time. I'm the guy who wrote that was the cost of doing business. They didn't write that, man. Their machine wrote that. It's been trained to write that. And there's going to be tiers to it. If you're this smart, you'll get to tier 2 right off the gate. And then eventually there'll be an automatic trigger that sends you to tier 2 right away, because you're always a smart guy. Or maybe, there's guys out here like Ben Justison. I was just talking with him yesterday. He had a comment about calling the call center at Verisk at like 2:00 in the morning. They had their 24-hour support. You know what I mean? And he thought that the whoever the chat bot or whatever it is that Verisk has at 2:00 in the morning was going to be able to answer whatever question he at his level has. Like, this is a guy, you know what I mean? This is a high level guy with high level knowledge. You're going to automatically trigger the tier 3. You know what I mean? Like, this guy needs a human. Like, we'll get back to you at 9 a.m., sir. You know what I mean? That's going to be what it's going to be for guys like that all the time. And there'll be trigger systems. And then the key for you as a restorer is to bypass all that nonsense, all that tier 1, tier 2, maybe even tier 3 nonsense, and get to the human every time. Demand the human reviewer every single time. Because if we let these machines do this stuff to us, then we are responsible for the result that this will produce.
So you just have to scream agent into the phone every time you call until they just give you who you agent. Just hold down the zeros and hit it. So, all right. So there's a lot to unpack there. We've presented a lot of things that are already in motion. A lot of things you can imagine. This is going to just get worse and worse and worse. And a lot of this stuff, and I'll play the devil's advocate. I get it from the carrier side. Yeah, because you're going to have adjusters that have a bias. You're going to have adjusters that has a relationship with maybe a company. So I see where they're coming from, but I also can see the how ominous this can be to getting paid. So outside of screaming agent into the phone a bunch of times and trying to get into that knowledge is there. What can restorers do now to really just start moving in the direction of being able to mitigate some of that problem and to make sure that they're on the up and up on this?
This is the topic I've been given the most thought about. And even since Chris and I talked the other day, I've been trying to figure out what can we do, right? Because in my opinion, as an industry, we are potentially 3 to 5 years behind right now, as far as what we're going to be, as what the other side's been doing and where we are. We're 3 to 5 years, or a large, and I mean stupid large, sum of money to catch back up with this with these tools, right? So then we got to play in the same sandbox is the only thing that I can think of until somebody comes along. And there's some bright gentlemen in our field. And as a general announcement, if any of you guys out there, and you know who I'm talking about, are these bright gentlemen, and you think you've got an idea for a solution, I am 100% down for the conversation that this is going to require, because these issues are going to be important. As restorers, as what we will become as consumers of this technology, we need to request that anything that's AI generated, adjustments, estimates, anything, be flagged and tagged as such, that this was not done by a human being. A computer did this, whether that computer has the login information, because digital employees are already a thing. If this computer has the login for whoever the adjuster is and his name's on the estimate, there should be an asterisk or something that says that AI wrote this, not this human being who could have potentially site visited and done all this stuff himself. That's got to be paramount. And just like in Florida where you are, they just made an actual physical law that whoever changes or adjusts anything must have their name on the document, whether it's an exactimate estimate or whatever. There's got to be a name on the document signifying the person who changed it. And that all happened because 60 Minutes made a big deal about it. If 60 Minutes makes a big deal about this, this is the first thing that they're going to talk about with us too, is did AI do it or did a human do it? Who's responsible for the number? You know what I mean? We got to challenge anything that's AI driven as far as denials. especially line item denials, non-payment denials, requesting the specific algorithm, data source, the historical data, precedent, anything that they used to come to that decision, anything that the AI used to come to that decision has to be part of the thing. And if it's not in the policy language, then we must demand, review, even appraisal at that point. Policy-based justifications have got to be the most paramount thing. If they can't justify it in the policy language, we all know as restorers, then they must pay bill. If they can't make a thing in the policy that says they don't pay bill, then they must pay the bill. As long as it's justified, fair, reasonable, all the junk that they always quote to us, right? Human oversight is going to be a big deal. It's going to be on both sides too. We are going to have to be very conscientious of the data we're feeding the machine. What we get out of these things is going to be a direct reflection of what we feed them. If we feed them frustration and a whole bunch of nonsensical arguments, that's exactly what we're going to get back out of them, because that's going to, the tone of these machines can be based on multiple or singular entries. And that can be a person on the other end of it, the human on their end, who's deciding, make sure this guy has a terrible day. And you know what I mean? Give him the hardest, most possible responses ever and stuff like that. And the data that we're putting in is going to be responsible for that. The very fundamental thing about AI is it only is able to spit out what's put into it.
Right.
Well, the people who create the AI can control what's put into it, but once they release it into the wild and start sending it to do these tasks, then it will automatically take in your responses, and it has an automatic tone and basis and data-driven response level to what you said. So we have to be very clear on what we put in. The same thing has to go for them. Anything that's AI driven, whether it be their algorithm that says we don't cover project management, or any kind of a data source where they say that because we get 10 and 10, project management is null and void. That's another common one that we hear a lot. Any historical precedent that they're using. Well, when this loss happened, we had the same square footage affected, and that loss cost us roughly $7 a square foot. So, you know what I mean? Stuff like that is going to be the big deal. Not paying attention to individual project needs is going to be the serious victim here. AI is going to be so easy for adjusters to use, they're going to completely ignore their clients. And that's where the disconnect is going to become with them, I think. Education of policyholders, another strong topic here. Contractors should definitely still, if they're not, they should start. And if they are, they should still and reinforce empowering their insureds and advocating and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. Encourage everybody to request full documentation. If they know that they're getting an AI estimate, and ensure that they know that they have the ability to request the full claim documentation and dispute anything that AI produced for them. It's their house that has to go back together. We're the middleman, and we have to remember that a lot of the times in this relationship, we are still kind of the middleman. There's guys out there, well, I bill the clients, I only bill the clients. Well, great, man, you talk to an adjuster too. They call you too, brother. Stop pretending. Right. So I mean, it's always the same song and dance, but we have to continue to empower these clients. We have to encourage everybody to make sure that they know their rights, that they are fully aware of the Unfair Claims Settlement Practices Act, and that nobody has any delusions about what that means. Advise people to file formal complaints with the state insurance regulators if the AI is being used to unfairly deny, alter, or adjust claims. Those complaints are the thing that's going to lead to regulation. Right now, there is no regulation on this. Everybody's just kind of flying around with their guns out, and nobody's really checking on any systems right now. And systems are being allowed to do things that, if given a lot more thought or a deeper level of thought, maybe there would be a regulation on the amount of things that AI is being allowed to interact with. Because right now, other than missile guidance, it's not much. Everything else is kind of being looked at for an AI solution. Every other industry, every other human being out there. I had a list the other day too with like data entry people, even taxi drivers, delivery drivers. Amazon's already doing their robot driver program. I have an Amazon building, a big one right here in Colorado Springs. The stuff that you see them testing around this city is insane. They got the drone delivery, they got the automated drivers, the big old ProMasters rolling around with nobody sitting in them. All kinds of stuff like this, and these are already happening. And like we said in the very beginning, this is a technology that's going to grow and advance faster than anything you've ever seen before because of its ability to teach and learn from itself. What's going to be like by 2030? You know what I mean? And it's up to us to make sure that we protect ourselves, teach our customers how to protect themselves from anything that could be adversely affected by artificial intelligence interaction or interjection or integration.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And I just have to come clean then now. I guess I am AI. This whole entire podcast is not real. Everybody that's listening to this or watching this, Doug's not real either. We actually generated this over a couple beers the other night, made this whole thing up. No, let me ask you a question. How much, because it sounds like this boils down to like, we really need to have transparency is probably the key word, at least at a minimum right off the bat. How much transparency is there right now in these processes that are being taken over by AI right now, as far as the claims process goes?
Unless you demand it, none. There's
none.
There's no regulation or ruling that says they have to tell you anything. They don't have to tell you that AI wrote the estimate. They don't have to tell you that AI wrote the rebuttal unless you ask. If you ask a question, they can't muddy the waters or act in bad faith by lying to you. You see what I'm saying? So if you ask them, the funnest thing to do is if you go to like PLRB or even at Verisk at their convention this year, tons of insurance people, tons. And a couple beers in, these guys were ready to talk, man. I tell you what, one of the things that they couldn't wait to brag about was how much that their companies are integrating and utilizing AI technologies to make their lives easier. And I'm talking about VPs of claims, not like John the adjuster. I'm talking about the position on this gentleman's ID badge said VP of claims, and I took my full opportunity to have a long conversation with that guy. I mean, there's so much going on in the space right now, and as restorers, we like to think that there's always this adverse relationship, carrier to restorer, and they feel the same way. You know what I mean? They feel that little bit of adversity back and forth too. However, their checkbook's bigger. And fighting with a bigger checkbook is never usually a good idea for anybody that's ever done it before. Can probably tell you the horror stories about it. This one I feel is going to be our horror story, and it's going to happen before 2030. It's already happening to restorers today.
Yeah, I called our local Renaissance Festival last week because we made a mess up in the tickets, and I was talking for a very long time with somebody with an incredible medieval accent, upbeat personality, and realized that I was speaking to a machine after about 5 minutes. Like,
awesome.
They do it up really nice at the Renaissance Festival. Everybody stays in character. I'm like, and this is not the biggest Renaissance Festival in the world. I was really blown away by how convincing it was that I was talking to you. Like, you almost had no idea until I asked a specific question that they couldn't get to, and they're like, we can't handle something like that. I'm like, what do you mean you can't handle something like that? And it was just like, bloop, please email something else. Well, again, so transparency is going to be key. Right now, you've got to kind of beat it out of them to get that info out. You've given kind of the overview of what's to come. Who knows what's to come based off of this. I mean, again, we're up against, and you guys are up against a monster when it comes to revenue, and they're developing this at, probably faster than we even realize. So we default to thinking it's probably worst case scenario. We're on the verge of a Terminator 2 situation. Luckily, you're in Colorado Springs. You probably get away to the mountains. I've got my own little farm out here that I can hide away with plenty of guns. I've seen the movie 100 times, so I'm good there. But to be serious again, so let me ask you, so something peaked in my head. So, without being a restorer myself, as far as the process goes, one of the big things that I can see that the AI is going to affect when it comes to pricing is the procurement of the materials, right? So if they're going to reject things based off material costs, as well as I do, they change every day. Concrete for me, aggregate goes up and down like you wouldn't believe. So we bid jobs in February that start in June. Aggregate's gone up 40% by that time, which affects asphalt, concrete, even our base rock and things like that. Are there any things in place right now to where we can kind of use the AI to our favor when we're going to, get an estimate on a job where they're going to estimate these material costs for a specific region and a specific time and offer buffers in there that we can leverage or restorers can leverage right now?
At the current time, there's not an AI tool. There is, so kind of full transparency, I am working on that exact same thing right now, and I intend to kind of show a 2.0 version of it. A couple people have already seen a version 1.0. I'm going to put out a 2.0 version of it to a few more people at RIA. My fear of the tool is that it can be used for good or evil based on its basis of it is, and I kind of. It's very important to the integrity of it to keep it in the right hands at this particular point in time, because if it were to fall into the wrong hands, hallucination of data is a big deal in AI. And so one user putting in data that they made up could throw the whole system off for the whole thing. And I'm not willing to risk that just yet. So we're far away from a public market on this thing. It is something that I'm working on, though. It is a tool that's out there. A lot of people are using material pricing. It's kind of a commonly known, I guess, in some circles, commonly known fact that Home Depot is kind of where Verisk gets the retail level for their pricing. So I mean, and that's good and bad. There's other suppliers out there that are cheaper for materials. Yeah. There's other ones that are significantly more expensive though too. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of the flip of the coin there. The model that we have to do that we have to follow as an industry is to price accordingly. Period. Whether you agree with Xactimate pricing and you use it, or whether you change Xactimate pricing as you're allowed to, given the EULA that Verisk just changed for us again last year. You're allowed to do that, and carriers are not allowed to stop you from doing that. So that's what contractors should do. But then it comes down to the integrity of the contractor too. There's guys out there that just push 40% more than Xactimate pricing. You're not right. You know what I mean? That's incorrect. You're price gouging at that point. And there's not a small number of contractors that do it. There's a large number of contractors that do it. There's third-party companies out there that tell you to do that, and that they'll go argue it for you and they'll get the money for you, but they won't tell you that you're ruining your relationship and reputation in your market with carriers. There's a lot of different things. When done correctly, custom pricing can be a very effective tool. You can not just, and if you're doing custom pricing and you're not reporting what you're seeing in differences back to Verisk, you're also shooting us in the foot. So if you're changing the price, then you have a justification for it, and you're not sending that information back to Verisk to try to get that price adjusted in your market, then you are shooting yourself and everyone else in your market in the foot. Stop doing that. They open themselves up to the feedback. They'll give you the ability to email them directly. And if you're right, you're right. They usually reach out to you and let you know, like, hey man, we see this too, and we wanted to get back with you and let you know that, we've taken a look and you're right, So influencing the change isn't that hard. It's doing it. It's actually following through and doing it. It's easy for us to stand up month after month, year after year, day after day, and complain about the carriers. If you guys think that it's going to get easier with this AI injection, you're drastically mistaken. And I encourage you to take a strong look at what's happening and what's happening in the world around you, because it's going to be big. And if you're not on this boat, you're going to get ran over by it. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the word.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we'll play the devil's advocate. There's a reason that these things are being implemented in insurance. Florida is crazy because people are taking advantage of it. We see it in the medical industry. We see it all over the place that, I guess it's they're trying to self-correct, getting denied. So they're going to dump an extra 40% on it, try to settle down with what the actual costs were actually going to be. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to take transparency on both sides. And it's going to take the right people coming to the table and saying, we need to regulate this in the right way. It's the Wild West right now. But I think it presents a great opportunity, right? It kind of resets that mentality with everybody, and it's going to get this, hopefully get the ship righted. And so people can avoid getting run over, because I think this is a very in most cases, and I think you mentioned this towards the beginning, that, we're talking to contractors, right? Not all, I'd say the majority of contractors, I myself being one, I'm an outlier in that regard, but they're not technically savvy. They're really good at what they do. They do their work. They're going to be the ones bitching about the denials and the AI and the computers getting over. But at some point, that complaining is just going to get silenced, because you're going to be gone. You're not going to have any more work. You're not going to do that. And same thing goes for the guys that are puffing up these claims by 40% or 10%, even more higher than something that's fair. They're going to lose out too. So what's outside of transparency, as we kind of get towards the tail end of this, what is something that, something else that restorers that's actionable that we can take control of right now, besides maybe getting involved in some, groups or legislation, or getting involved in what you're doing to try to make this work?
All of the above, and talk to your local contractors, talk to everybody in your market, make sure everybody is paying attention. That's going to be the key here, is to make sure that everyone's watching around them and seeing what's happening. Another big thing that we definitely need to pay attention to is the third-party reviews. Third-party review companies, I'm not going to sit here and spit names out all day, but there's third-party review companies out there that we all know about, that we all deal with all the time. These systems are now a large proponent and user of artificial intelligence. It is allowing them to have less and less human people at the desks. That is exactly what their business model requires for maximum profitability. Okay. The third-party review firms still don't have any legal authority. You know what I mean? They have no authority over your contractor pricing. 9 times out of 10, they're not adjusters in any way, shape, or form. They are now using AI to reject line items arbitrarily. None of them have ever seen your site, but they're telling you that you didn't need to do this thing that you said you needed to do and charge for. The role is purely about cost containment, not fair assessment. It is 100% based on that. We have to be, as an industry, cognizant of the fact that if we let the AI third-party systems beat us, then we are justifying their existence to the carriers. That's going to be a big, big, big thing. If you give up, I mean, these things are mostly robots now. You're not even getting a human being there. The human deploys the robot, analyzes the return, and that's literally it. They don't do anything at these third-party companies anymore besides contain cost. And that's how they sell themselves to carriers, is by going in there and saying, we can contain costs, and this is our artificial intelligence system that helps us do it at a higher and more efficient rate. You know what I mean? That's going to be a big deal. Arguing with those things on anything other than policy language and justified fact is going to be adverse. And those tools don't have to play by any laws. They don't have to play by any policy. They don't care if you make if you make an issue with them to the state. If you make a complaint about them to the state insurance board, they don't care. Nobody at the state insurance board cares about them either. They're a third party.
Right.
So those get dicey. That's going to be another big thing that we're going to see for sure.
Yeah, Doug, listen, I appreciate all of this, and I'm sure everybody listening does too. I think that we should open the door to having some sort of roundtable on this, maybe specifics. I know you're in the midst of all of this right now, and things are changing rapidly, but I think it would be beneficial to everybody out there that listens to this with our reach and what we can do collectively here. And I'd be all for having a few people that you recommend coming on and really kind of brainstorming this stuff and kind of coming up with ideas on how we can move forward in the right direction, because I do think that there's a world that exists that this can get mitigated to possibly. I liken a lot of this stuff to getting dunked underwater. And if you do the right thing, you're eventually going to surface again. It's going to suck for a little while. But I think things will correct themselves over time, much like they've done. We see it from a digital marketing perspective with algorithm updates, and as Google's training AI and all these tools are being more prevalent, it almost has forced digital marketing back into the stone age of digital marketing, where best practices right down the line, there's no way around it, and doing things the right way consistently is going to help you surface back up when you do get dunked under by some major change out there. So if you're open to it, I think the audience would definitely be open to having some sort of roundtable. I'm going to lean on you a little bit for that. We'll stay in contact. But if there's anything else you want to add, now's the time before I let you go get back in there and start working on your cool tool I'm excited to hear about in April in RIA.
Yeah, man, no worries. Everybody make sure you make the tech panels and the AI breakout this year at RIA. I know a lot of years I've been in all these tech panels year after year too. We kind of gloss over what's happening, talk about all the cool stuff. But this year we're going to have a strong focus on the incoming artificial intelligence. And it's definitely going to be sessions worth watching. The tech panel and then the breakout on the last day of the conference. Those are both going to be not to miss if you guys are going to RIA.
Yeah, definitely. RIA is right in our backyard. Ironclad Restoration Marketing team will be there hanging out. I will be making sure I'm sitting into these tech panels and kind of collaborating with everybody. I'm a huge proponent of this industry. Obviously, we market for the industry. I believe in the contracting side, and I want to do everything I can from my end, and so does my team, to make sure that we can move this industry forward. Just via education is a huge thing that we can do here. Doug, appreciate your time, man. I'm looking forward to building a relationship here and just having you on more often. I think there's so much more you can bring to the table for guys out there that are listening to this. Our tens of listeners here at the podcast. But I think there's a ton of information that you can bring to the table, and I'm looking forward to continue to have you on, man. We'll see you in April, if anything. Definitely, man. Looking forward to it. Anybody out there that wants to link up, talk about this stuff, figure out a solution, I am all ears, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm all ears. Let's get together and let's make something happen for us, because there's a lot happening against us right now. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm sure everybody does listen. If you are listening to this, drop a comment on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, anywhere that this thing is going to post. We're going to syndicate it across the board. So if there's something specific that you got a question on, we can address it in this roundtable that I think we're going to try to put together, or even another episode when Doug comes on, or reach out to Doug directly. Rare-restoration.com is your URL, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Doug at rare-restoration.com.
Check it out. Doug's an open book. I've been watching in the wings about everything he's done. He's very active. Obviously, if you guys know who he is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, he's definitely one of the people that you need to get in touch with in this industry for anything you're struggling with, not just these softwares and tools, but running the business in general. And digital marketing. He's got a huge background, which we're going to talk a little bit more about next time you have him on. Doug, thank you, buddy. We'll be in touch soon, man. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Restoration Rundown podcast. As always, please like, subscribe, share this episode, and follow Ironclad Restoration Marketing on all the socials and all the streaming platforms. It would do us a huge favor if you would drop comments on some things that you're struggling with so we can craft episodes that are going to directly affect your business, your operations. So that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.